Right, I'm sitting outside cleaning the paint bleed off my clear part deck houses. I did a search on the internet for how to clean paint off clear parts, and a topic that I put on Bit Modeler forums a few years ago from when I did my Star Trek Enterprise build from the reimagined Star Trek film, where I got some primer on the clear nacelle globes. I'd actually forgotten about this topic, so I read the topic and I found out what I used. I used some chloroform. But then one of the other users says, well, a little tip for you, when you put your masking tape on, once the masking tape's dried, put a bit of future around the edges and you'll save yourself all this hassle. I actually forgotten all about it. So turning the camera around, there's my little table. I've got my chloroform, put a little bit in the cap, put my mask on, because this stuff stinks, and you know, it's the chloroform that sends you to sleep. And I dipped my little end of my cocktail stick in the chloroform and started to clean around the edges and the bits in the middle as well, and it actually lifted it quite well. Not all of it, but some of it. So on the main piece there, you can see it's not perfect. It's not perfect. And then you got the other piece as well. Again, it's not perfect, but they're both looking a hell of a lot better than there was. Also, rummaging around in the under the sink, I found out my old pledge wax, which is what you Americans call future. So I dipped the cocktail stick in a little bit of cotton wool and started to buff them up a little bit. It's cleaned a little bit of the residue off, but I'm happy with the way these are now. Not bad at all. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was. Going back to the top of my upright freezer, I've now glued the bottom deck to the underneath of the middle deck. I haven't had to use as many clamps this time because there ain't as much wall on the bottom deck as there is on the middle. I've had to strategically place the clamps where the few walls are. So I did with the PVA, went all around the tops of the walls, all the way around, the underneath there, all the way around. On the front fascia, for the bridge fascia, there's a little groove there, so I put some of the PVA in there. And then I started to place my clamps. The trouble is, when I placed my clamps, this here wanted to, it wouldn't go all the way down, it was actually lifting slightly. So what I've had to do is I've had to get 2G clamps and a bit of sheet plastic and hold that down. There ain't that much pressure on it, it's just enough to clamp it. I ain't like really put the pressure on. So that, because if I'd have really put the pressure on, it'd have probably broke the, squashed the bridge roof and probably popped that out where I'd glued it into the grooves. So this has been drying for 24 hours. I've just got to wait another 24 hours and then I can take the clamps off. I've took the clamps off the bottom deck, that gluing it to the top and the middle. It's not looking too bad. I found one niggling issue though. The little front fascia plate there, it hasn't gone right into the front wall, even though it has on the other side, so I've got to slightly fill that gap in. Generally, it ain't looking too bad. Turning it round, leaning it on me enamel pots, not too bad. I mean, at least it's gone onto the that wall at the back there. That was one of the main concerns, I wouldn't be able to get it lined up. The gap issue ain't as bad on this side, but now the three decks together, I can actually start now working on the top deck. Starting work on my smokestacks. Now, one of the main topics stroke controversies of the smokestacks is what the hell colour is White Star Buff. Some people say it's a orangey yellow, some people say it's a peachy orange, some say it's a creamy yellow. Then you've got the formulas where people have bought like 5 different paints, done 50 drops of the one, 15 drops of the other, 10 drops of the other, so on and so forth. I didn't want to do that. So one of the did a bit more research on the internet, and one of the closest pre-mixed is Humbrol No, number 7 light buff, and it's in gloss. I've had this tinlet for a few years. I'll give it a bloody good shake and a bloody good stir, and it's still usable because I've used this on other projects. So what I did is I got a bit of sheet plastic, priming it one side, sprayed the white on the other. I've done 4 coats, but because it's gloss I've had to use matte coat on top of that. But on the primer side, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but some of the primer is still showing through. On the white side it's absolutely perfect. So what I've done is I've done each smokestack one at a time. I sprayed number 1, give it a light dusting of the white, put 1 coat of the light buff on the inside, and then got my Sharpie pen and marked it number 1. I then lightly dusted number 2 in the white, painted the inside, put 2, and I did the same for 3 and 4. Now 4 I haven't done the outside yet, but you can, like I said, there's the light dusting of the white spray. Now smokestack number 1 is all done. 5 coats of the light buff later, and I've matted it, and it's looking really nice. It's not a 100% match to White Star Buff, but it'll do for me. So all I've got to do now is finish off the other 3 smokestacks. I've done some work on the top deck piece that will be sitting on top of there. As you know from a previous video, I've done all these bits apart from the dome and the clear deck house, where I had to mask off all those windows. So I put the dome in first, that went in dead easy with a glue and glaze. I then put the clear deck house on top of that with a glue and glaze, let that dry. Then it was to put the smokestacks on. So I put the smokestacks on, starting with number 1. As per the plans, you put a little ring of glue around the mounting ring because there's a little notch, which there's a notch on the inside of the smokestack. What I did is I let that get tacky for a couple of minutes, and then I've got a piece of my sheet plastic which I've now cut up. I slotted that in there like that, so it give me something to glue onto, attach to. Then I've got my G clamp, because of this swivel it'll give me the angle that I need, and it'll still be flat underneath. So I just put it underneath, put that bit underneath there, and then went with my G clamp on the top, and as I was turning it and turning it and turning it, that bit there angled, and it gave me the perfect clamp. So I just left that for a couple of hours to set, because Revel contactor only takes a couple of hours to set. Once that was on the morning, and then on the evening I put smokestack 2 in, because I'd matte coated it. I'd done the last couple of coats a couple of days ago. I matte coated it and then done the same with that, and got my little piece of plastic in there, then the clamp. I set that about 8 o'clock. I went to bed about 11, and then just took the clamp off, and these have glued an absolute treat. Now, the line work. I've had to go back to the first part of the construction pages. Where is it? There. Because it tells you to put H in, which is 25 centimeters, so I went 30 in the end, and then G. Now with H, it tells you to wrap it underneath, go all the way around, where with G you just got to use your little piece of plastic as a stopper and then hole it through. So turning this upside down, got my little egg crate that I've been using for my PVA, and that's exactly what I've done. I've done it with a super glue, and there's my little piece of sprue plastic that I've stretched with the candle. So I glued those in and let those set. The rigging, gluing it in, been following a couple of builds on the internet, and the one guy, he thought, well, how am I supposed to put tension in those while the glue's drying? So what he did is he got a couple of small clothes pegs like I've got here, and just used the clothes pegs to put some tension in the wire, so they'll actually go into those grooves where the glue is and give it a nice bit of tension. So what I did is I got my egg box, put some of my Humbrol bits and bobs in there to weight that down, and then one of my little brass tinlet, and just let that dry. And it only took about an hour and a half, 2 hours to fully cure. And the problem is, even though I'd like put these two in level, one's actually gone and pulled itself down a centimetre down, so that one's like 13.5 and that one's 14.5, but because I get it the extra 5 centimetres instead of it in 25, I'm just hoping these, I might just have to cut a bit of excess off, but I'd rather have too much than not enough when I glue these to the mast. Now gluing the deck piece on top of the walls. I've had to wrap the thread around the first smokestack so it loose and trying to get underneath while I'm gluing, and then I've took the little stoppers off my clamps because they're too bloody big, and then just dotted them round this section here, and that one there is trying to lift up, so I've had to get the clamps in the best I can. So I'm just going to leave this now for a couple of hours to set, and we'll see what happens. I've taken the clamps off the smokestack 1 and 2 top roof area, and it's not looking too bad. It's glued down an absolute treat, no problems at all. On this piece here, the second piece, I've glued that down as well. That ain't looking too bad, you know, the bit with the observation deck, well, observation tower I should say. Turning this round. On this side, I don't know why it's happened, even though I clamped it down perfect, there's a gap. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get a touch of filler and just fill that gap in. Because like I said, I glued it down, clamped it perfect, both sides were down, but I just don't understand why that's done that. And then the second deck, top deck, that's not looking too bad either. So, just got to fill that in. I've now glued smokestack number 3 into place. So, as per the plan, just turning them over. You glue smokestack number 3 into the top of that, around that little circle with the messing tabs. So that's what I did. I've got my little piece of plastic that I've been using. Then got my G-clamp and held that onto the actual platform there. Once that was dry, I then took my G-clamp and a bit of plastic away and then glued it into the back, well, just slot it into place into the back of this platform area with the raised viewing platform, and it fits in really snug around that little grey raised section like that underneath there. And I put a clamp here, I put a clamp here, and I put a clamp here. Let that dry for a couple of hours, taking the clamps away. Then I've moved on to this section here for smokestack number 4. So turning the plans back round again. I've put my thread in, waited for the super glue to cure, then I put that on top of there, put a clamp here and put a clamp here, and there's the thread, the rigging thread. So all I've got to do now is just glue that on top of there.